What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Digital Artcast. Here with another episode. Trying to keep these more regular this time round. I know from my last episode it has been kind of sporadic when the episodes have been landing, but that's just because I've been so busy with work. But the next guest we have on today is someone I've wanted to get on the podcast for a while now, a couple of months. Since I saw some of his YouTube and ArtStation shenanigans with challenges, stuff like that. And finally, after some scheduling and of course just making general pleas of please come on the podcast, I finally made him cave in, and today we're talking to Mr. Tim Simpson. So what up, Tim? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, how's it going, man? Good. Just finished off work, so it's gonna be nice to sit down and chat with you.
Yeah, nice, man, nice. So I mean, we talked about kind of where you've been and what you've done, but the first time I kind of came across your work, which I always feel bad for because there are so many people within this industry that never really post online or never really sit constantly on stuff, putting stuff on ArtStation, or they can't because of NDAs. So there's just so many people in the world you'll always miss. But then luckily during the Feudal Japan challenge on ArtStation, you were quite kind of highlighted within your posting. You were uploading via Polygon some of the Academy stuff. You were teaching people how to light and work within Unreal in real time. So yeah, that's the kind of first, I think, instance I saw your work. Although I did see some of your other work. The end was End of the Data Core. The environment you done is a kind of
Yeah. It's like a
material
sci-fi
test.
one.
Yeah, I kind of bookmarked that as soon as it came out as well. So before I had kind of went into your portfolio, I'd noticed that I've already seen this guy's work and thought it was really awesome. So
Cool. Thanks.
yeah, welcome, man. So yeah, I mean, the Feudal Japan Challenge is probably a combination of a lot of work towards years and years in the industry, and we just recently talked about you did work for Ubisoft back in the day on stuff like Watch Dogs and Farcry.
Yeah.
But now you're in Took, which is this kind of new studio that you're working with. So I would probably just take us on your journey. I mean, maybe not so far back as school, because I think people have maybe similar stories when it comes to schoolwork and stuff, but maybe even college, university. Did you study 3D in education?
Yeah. I actually kind of do have to take it back to school because that's
Oh
that's
god,
where
there you go.
that's where I first got introduced to 3D, and back in
Yeah.
it would be like grade 8. I kind of had the opportunity to pick up 3D Studio Max for the first time and start learning that. And back then, that was back in like the early 2000s when I was in high school.
Okay,
There was
wow. Yeah.
the school that I was in was actually had a reputation for the grads getting jobs at EA, like EA Vancouver. Almost
Wasn't Sheridan by chance, was it?
no, it was a high school called Robert Bateman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they EA was often snapping up grads from straight out of high school. So I saw this as an opportunity to not have to go to college or university or anything
Oh
like that,
wow.
because I was never like a huge fan of school or anything. It was just kind of like that's my personality, is like the I don't like sitting in classrooms and being told what to do and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I basically I started learning 3ds Max back in high school, and then I kind of kept teaching myself, and just building my portfolio and going the self-taught route. So using like Gnomon DVDs or YouTube and stuff like that.
Old
And
school, yeah.
there's definitely a lot more of it online now.
Oh
But
yeah.
I mean, there was always kind of like resources, even like books on like how to model. Is kind of awkward, back in the day, like okay, page 59, look at the picture, then try and find that menu in 3ds. It's just horrible, right? Like now you got video tutorials.
Jesus.
It's great. So yeah, I worked on my portfolio, and I got my first job in the industry at a small studio in Vancouver. Doing It was a small outsourcing studio, doing like environment work. When I was about, I think, 20. I think I signed my first contract to go work for them right a couple days after my 20th birthday or something like that. So
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
really young.
And then so I worked at a bunch of studios in Vancouver. Like I worked at United Front on Sleeping Dogs. Then I bounced over to Relic and worked on the Warhammer 40K Space Marine game. And
Nice.
then Vancouver's industry was kind of slowly imploding, and me and my best buddy, we were working at the same studio at Relic at the same time, and we both got headhunted by Ubisoft in Montreal, and we made the jump over to Montreal. So, and then I worked there for the last, I don't know, 5+ years at Ubisoft Montreal, and then took a sabbatical for about a year And then
Yeah.
the same buddy, he was working at Tuke, and they had a big project that they were working on, big deadline. He's like, hey, do you want to come take some time from your sabbatical and get back into the 3D stuff, working professionally? And yeah, so I joined up with them and been having a great time since.
Nice, nice. I take it. You don't know a guy called Liam Wong by a chance, do you?
Liam Wong, no, I know his work. It's
Right.
the
Yeah.
photography is just super badass, but no, I never had a chance to meet him.
Yeah. He was. I'm sure he was working within the Farcry franchise. I think he'd been working it since the first iteration of the game. I don't know if he's in Toronto or another studio, but fun enough, he's from Edinburgh. He's Scottish as well.
Oh,
But yeah,
seriously?
yeah, but that was hilarious because he was on Ash Thorpe's podcast, and I can't. I might be misquoting Ash, but I'm sure when Ash got him on, he basically got him on because of his Tokyo photography, which is incredible in
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. That's what
Um,
everyone knows him for. Like that
yeah,
iconic like blues and pinks is just super amazing.
yeah, and yeah, so literally, Ash was talking to him about like his photography and then about everything else he'd done, and Liam just kind of by the by was like, "Oh yeah, like I work at Ubisoft as like a art director slash
Yeah, yeah.
QA guy,"
Just
and he was
casual art
yeah, just on the
director. Yeah,
side, yeah, just to earn a couple of extra bucks, and Ash was like, "Oh, holy shit, no way, you work in games?" He was like, "Yeah, man." So yeah, because I remember actually seeing a lot of this stuff and then looking at his backlog, and I'm like, he's worked at Crytek and he's at Ubisoft, and holy shit, this guy's from Edinburgh. But yeah, it was funny how nobody really knew that he done stuff from the Far Cry franchise. It was just the
yeah, yeah.
photography stuff. But yeah, no, yeah, that was awesome. I mean, what a kind of legacy to have worked on such amazing games. I mean, even the 40K one, the Space Marine stuff. I mean, people
Yeah,
gave it shit
that
back in
one
the
was
day,
a
but
real like passion project for me because it's
oh
probably
yeah,
one of the best like funnest productions I've ever worked on. Just a really passionate group of people, and just a really cool franchise. I'm kind of sorry to see that they never were able to make like a Space Marine 2. I think it would have been really cool, but you know,
yeah. I mean, they had the Total War guys made the Warhammer, but no the 40K. Obviously, the just the basic Warhammer. And
yeah,
then I think
yeah.
there was a couple of the FPSs that came out recently for some of the Inquisition guys. But the best thing I think I've seen recently is the fan made piece that's going about in YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it, and a guy is recreating like a story arc in the Space Marine 40K universe. Um, just as a fan, like he's modeled everything himself, animated it, rendered it, shot it like it's an actual movie, and it's
Oh,
up.
that's
And
cool.
I'll need to send you the link. You'd probably
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it,
for
but
sure.
it's been burning up. Everybody's been going on about it. The guys basically took the project on himself. I mean, you look at the shots, you would honestly think it was a whole studio working on it, but it's just I think it's one, maybe two people. And actually, just watching it, you're like, God, man, I wish they'd make this into a full length movie because it's incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, so yeah, the Warhammer obviously, and then Watch Dogs, and then Far Cry, yeah, some massive franchises, and then you say you took a sabbatical. So were you just stepping away from AAA just to focus on learning more, or was it the Polygon stuff, or
Yeah, like well, I took some time off. Like I got the travel bug for a while. So I decided, do a bit of traveling. I also like really enjoy scuba diving and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I've been doing games for almost 10 years at that point. So it's,
wow,
time
yeah,
for a bit of a break, right? But then I started developing the idea of Polygon Academy while I was on my sabbatical. I'm like, this could be a cool little side hustle I could turn into a business. So I've got kind of like long-term plans for that, which should be pretty dope. But
right,
I've always been passionate about doing like environments and 3D art and just the game industry in general. So
yeah.
having an outlet to kind of put that creative energy into is a fun little side hustle right now. So
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because I mean, when I originally saw the postings, I actually thought you were associated with Polygon.com. I think,
yeah, no.
yeah, I think they're basically a news outlet for games. I think,
Yeah,
or
yeah, they're kind of like Kotaku or IGN or whatever. So
yeah, yeah. So I was kind of like, oh, that's cool that they're doing 3D stuff now. And then I kind of dig deeper, and I was like, oh, this must just be something that Tim's working on. So yeah, that's awesome that you've kind of took that and made a yeah, because like I feel that sometimes there's a not a healthy balance of pro stuff that is free that helps people into. I mean, this is the whole point I started the podcast, right? It was to
yeah, yeah.
help guys like me, students, people who had a load of questions, to sit with pros and talk about their experiences, their journeys, and hopefully inspire and educate people who didn't know what to do. Because when I started back in 2011, because I left another career like, as an engineer to come back into games. Yeah, the wasteland that was learning online was quite barren, like you said, and I was only having stuff like No Mon or a couple of maybe YouTube tutorials, but there was nothing really in between. You either had to pay for stuff or you had to go to a school, and unfortunately I went the school route because I didn't really know any better. I didn't know I could have taught myself. But yeah, like it was I mean I've got a degree to it, so it's not a total waste, but at the same time I did wish there was more online resources because there wasn't stuff like Learn Squared or CubeBrush or anything really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good that you have that aspect now. You want to reach out and help people. And is
Yeah,
that going
like
to be something you're going to turn into a website as well? Or is it just the YouTube channel or
yeah, it's gonna be like I have a website where I basically it started when I started writing some articles, kind of like how to apply to game studios, why your portfolio needs to be on ArtStation, because
Mhm.
I go on Polycount all the time, and I found myself writing these like massive like 1 or 2 thousand word posts over and over and over, just trying to give the younglings some advice, right?
Yeah,
And my friend was like, dude, you could like turn those into a book or something like that. You're writing like novels here.
yeah,
So I kind of started writing these articles, and then kind of started building the brand like that. And they got shared around a bunch. So I do have a website. It's just polygonacademy.com, just like Polygon Dash Academy.
right,
And so that's where those I got a few articles up on there. But my main focus lately has been the YouTube side of things, and that's been like a lot more popular, just because it's easier to show and demonstrate with screen recording and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely focused on building that up. But yeah, because I mean, for me, being self-taught, like I said in the beginning, like resources were kind of not that super available. So
yeah,
I know the struggle, even for students in like art school or game art design programs or anything like that. Uh, sometimes there's varying levels of education, right? So and it's the opportunity to learn from an industry insider is something that I would have loved as a like a young kid learning. So I kind of
yeah,
want to put some stuff out that's like relevant to current industry stuff. And there's also like I have a huge content plan for a lot of information on like how to get into the industry, tips for interviews, just general industry kind of like thoughts and opinions, because a lot of the stuff is like that's out there is like, oh, here's how you model a car, here's how you do this, right? And there's not a lot of like the okay, how do I network within the industry, stuff like that.
right.
That is just kind of like this big unknown blank for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, it's like I said that it's hard because you want to have people obviously worthy of their time, so you can't expect people to put stuff out for nothing because then obviously it feels like well I can do this, but then if I still have to have a main job to serve that income, then what's the point? I really need to see a revenue stream coming in, and it's funny when I talked to one of my friends today. We were talking about the layoffs at EA, and he was saying about guys who are freelance now. We need to stop talking each other as freelance artists and more as small business owners, because he says
Yeah,
the future of like people working in games as more like a freelance or just lots of studios, outsourced studios that will gather freelancers together to work on projects, which is a super interesting question actually, because you've been in the industry for 10 years now. So I suppose I could put it to you. I mean, I don't know how much you want to speak about it, but over the last couple of years through networking events I've went to, and I know people personally at Blizzard, at EA, and yeah, the layoffs the last 6 months, even at Telltale. Where do you see game studios going? Do you see them just being smaller and more refined, or do you see it being more freelance and guns for hire, or how do you kind of view it?
yeah. I mean, I think you'll always have like massive studios, like say Ubisoft Montreal. It's like 3,000 people. Like I don't think it's
Right.
going anywhere. It's subsidized by the government, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It is becoming this crazy game of like if your game doesn't sell 20 million units, you're probably gonna get laid off or something like that. But
Yeah.
then you do also have like the little 2-3 man superhero teams that put out something like say Super Meat Boy or Astroneer or something like that, where it's a smaller team that just has not a seemingly overnight success. Obviously, it's not overnight. They
Yeah.
work on it for years, right? That's just
No,
how it
of
works.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
But and then they crush it, and then they can reinvest all that capital into building their own studios.
Yep.
And I think that middle ground is of like smash hit and like independent smaller game is kind of like getting eaten up.
Yeah.
um, so I think you'll start to see a lot of these smaller studios that have these big hits start to grow, and
Mhm.
they'll kind of like be working. with small to medium teams, and hopefully continue to put out hits as they grow. But it's almost like the life cycle, right? Like it's same thing happened in Vancouver. All these studios, smaller studios started up, like Black Box back in the day. They get
Yeah.
bought out by EA, and then like 10 years later they get closed down. All those
Yeah.
people splinter off and form studios. But I mean, it's always been an industry where there's been layoffs and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's actually kind of goes back to that point you were talking about with freelance and stuff like that. Is one of the biggest things I think especially artists can be doing these days is just building an audience, and that's like a big part of the reason why I'm doing the whole Polygon Academy project. Is
Right.
that's like if you ever listen to stuff like what Gary Vee or all these guys are talking about, is like build an audience.
Chuck Media, man.
Yeah, man,
That's
dude,
my boy.
that's the whole approach that I'm taking to Polygon Academy. Is just like put out good content that people want to consume, and
Yeah.
then every now and then release a premium product or something like that. Like for sure, I put out all this free content. One of these days, I'll probably make like a super in-depth course, put that out, and then continue to put out more and more free content for everyone. Right? So there's something for everyone. But the thing is, if you've been doing that while say you're employed for like 5 years, and then you suddenly get laid off, you don't
Mhm.
have to hit the panic button, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a side income. Or I mean, there's people out there that are just crushing it. Like look at like Jonas Ronegard. He collabs with other
Fuck yeah.
artists. He makes
Yeah.
all these dope alpha packs, stuff like that. That's just super usable. And I have no idea the guy's income, obviously, and stuff like that. But I would say that he probably isn't too scared if he was, to get laid off. He's not going to be like, well, I guess I got to eat the Mr. Noodle diet for the next 6 months while I search for a job,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, that's minorly inconvenient. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, I mean, that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
I think people, if they want to stay on top of that kind of situation, is you have to put in the extra elbow grease. And I think that's for almost every industry these days. Is if you're not doing something to financially support yourself on the side, you're just going to be in a bad position if you're not prepared for it, right? So
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, like I was speaking to one of the guys actually I interviewed. He was my last interview, Moses Saint Fleur, and he's up in Montreal just now with CC2. I think it's Cyber Connect or one of
yeah,
the guys.
yeah,
They
I
do.
was just chatting with him on Facebook Messenger the other day.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So Moses, super awesome guy. I saw a lot of his stuff early on, but he's actually building an environment art course at the moment, like a start to finish. This is how you make an environment in real time. Finish this course start to finish, and you will get a job. He's working on that just now, but that's also his side hustle because he knows that, great, he's got a job just now, and that's his first job. But he's like, yeah, the studio could close tomorrow. The guys in
Yeah, yeah,
Japan could be like, nah, we're done. We're pulling out of Canada, and then yeah, what does he do then? Because does he have to go back to Miami? Can he sustain? So as the same with me, I mean, I think digital Artcast was a way for me to have something on the side I could use or utilize for publicity. And then obviously I think once I get good enough at 3D, I could start going the same route as Moses and teaching Gumroads, stuff on academies. I could learn, do courses for people. So yeah, I think it is one of these things. I mean, even today I was just uploading, like I'd done a whole month of speed modeling basically and had about 30, 40 models that I just made every day. And I was kind of sitting with the files and OBJs, and I was like, I could fire these on like Sketchfab or like QBrush, and like for $5 each, and see if somebody just buys them. And
yeah.
yeah, I think
I mean, it's just experimenting, right? Like
yeah,
you're going to be outputting stuff anyways, so it's just you might as well try and find ways to either monetize it or
mm,
and it's especially like if you're doing tutorials and just creating content that people find useful, is you're going to establish yourself as an expert in your field,
yeah,
which only gives you more opportunity, right? Like the amount of people that ever since I started making YouTube videos and stuff like that have just been hitting me up like with hey, do you want to come work here? Do you want to come work here? It just creates more content that people can come across you. So
yeah,
even for students, right? Like
mm,
a student could create basically exactly what I did, like a vlog of their next project.
yeah,
And you never know who's going to share it, and it's going to pop up in someone's LinkedIn feed, and then a recruiter is going to be like, "Oh, I like that sculpted ruins. Like, hey, we're hiring for like the next Assassin's Creed or Prince of Persia or something like that. Who knows?" And that's exactly what we need. And then they just
yeah.
get in contact, right?
Oh, dude, I mean, like the podcast in itself has been. I mean, I remember went to industry workshops in London last year, and I was just standing at the end of the night when we're just sitting having a drink and talking amongst people, and I had like two or three people just come up to me and be like, "Oh, Gordon, I love the podcast. It's really inspired me," and I'm sitting there like, thanks. Like, what do you say to that? Like, I've no idea. Like, I mean, I've done it myself. I've walked up to some of my biggest idols and said, "Oh, I love your work," and they'd be like, "Oh, thanks, man." Like, but yeah, the podcast thing, I never saw somebody actually walking up to me and be like, "Oh, your interview with Scott Robertson like really changed my perspective on learning," and I was like, what the fuck? But then even then, I remember one of the guys I met at THU. Not that I can say too much about it just now, but like I've been basically offered to work on like this massive project with somebody because of the podcast, and I was like, holy shit, like where did that come from? But
Yeah,
um,
exactly. I mean, like you're providing, even if like say you're a student or you're trying to get into the industry or whatever, you're
yeah,
providing those people value too, right? Like for
yeah,
them to try and sit down and create their own podcast, that's like a big headache. So I mean, for you to have a platform that you can just say, hey, do you want to come be on the podcast? It'll give you some exposure. It's like it's a nice value exchange, right? So
oh yeah,
it only you're putting them on, and then they're happy to give you a bunch of information, right? Because it just
back,
removes the
yeah,
headache of them having to sit down and figure it all out. So
yeah.
it's a
I mean,
win-win.
there's so many even just avenues now you can just leave stuff on and you don't even need to be near your computer. I mean, I found a loophole where you could basically, I think it was Restream. It's a website where it basically if you cast through OBS, like if you stream stuff, you can use Restream to basically send it to like 20 different sites you're signed up to all at once, so you can be constantly live on like all these platforms in one go. So I basically just run old episodes of the podcast on repeat, and then use Restream to broadcast them to like Twitch and the Microsoft's own thing, and YouTube and everything, YouTube Live, and just had it playing like 24/7. I just called it Digital Artcast TV, and the amount of subscribers and extra views I got just by people just coming across it and clicking on it, and just I just had to
Oh
leave
yeah,
a PC on repeat, and it was and you could probably do the same with Polygon and just leave it on, put those couple of videos you've got on the YouTube channel up and repeat, and people can just come across and watch them, and people were just chatting amongst themselves at one point, but you don't even really need to be, making a huge effort now. Things can just automate themselves to the
yeah,
point you don't even have to be
exactly.
involved. So,
Like,
yeah,
I mean, that's even like a point that you could kind of apply to, like, say, growing your ArtStation. Is like a lot of students, they kind of sit there and they're like, oh, it's so intimidating to post my work on ArtStation. No one's ever going to see it. But the sooner you start posting work, like you're just going to start accumulating followers and people that are paying attention to your work, right? So there's, instead of
yeah,
just waiting to have the perfect piece of art, like just start doing these little jabs of content bombs, like seeing
yeah,
like how it performs, trying to learn how ArtStation works. Like for me, I'm constantly playing with it. Like I treat it just as a social media platform, and not
yeah,
I don't just view it as just my portfolio. I'm like, this is a social media platform, and how do I figure out how it works? How can I figure out how the algorithm works so that I can have a better chance of getting my stuff into trending, which means more people are going to see it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like all people are like, oh, you got to post just final work, but I'll make a work in progress gallery post while I'm working on a project,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
I'll hide that, and then I'll repost my final art just to get like all those all the followers, like they get notified you just reposted.
yeah.
And I mean, it's just a good way of just playing with the system and seeing how it works, right? So if you start as a student, like it's only going to benefit you when you're trying to start actually looking for a job.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was actually involved in a feedback thing where I got to speak to some of the guys at ArtStation last month, and Leonard and his team are also doing a great job. In fact, they just launched an update for the iOS app where you can download your portfolio for offline viewing. I
Yeah,
was like, oh
I
my
saw that
god,
on my metro ride on the way
oh,
home. I'm like,
I've been waiting for that feature for so long. Like, oh my god, but yeah, like they do such an amazing job, and I was basically saying that I could see ArtStation as like, if you mix elements of Facebook social media in there, it could almost become a social media platform for artists. I really feel like that's its next step. Basically, is
oh, like
integrating.
I would say it already is like the social media platform for artists. Like it has,
Yeah,
compared to the amount of traction your work will get on, say, Instagram, ArtStation is just like the exact niche community of digital artists. Like it's your entire target audience in one spot,
yeah,
right? So
definitely.
you're removing a lot of the noise of Instagram, or Pinterest is just like it's super hard to navigate. There's no personal connection.
Yeah,
So I would say it already is the social media platform for artists. You have the blogging features, and like to be honest, if you one of the tips I would say to people, like especially students looking to grow their ArtStation following, is go and like actually engage with people. Like a lot of people, they'll post amazing art, and then you'll look at the comments, and it's like, oh, nice work. Oh, that's so cool. It's so amazing. But like what I started doing actually to provide value to people on ArtStation is I'll actually search for 3D student, and I'll go into their portfolio or their profile, and
yeah,
I'll go and actually I'll leave like a big meaningful comment on their art. Maybe
right.
like
Yeah,
a critique, or even like people like my peers or stuff like that. People that are already in the industry. Instead of just saying like, "Oh, this is amazing," I'll try and sometimes leave a big like, "Oh, this is really cool. I like the surface materials. How did you achieve this?" And you just start that dialogue going.
Yeah.
And that's how you can really start to get the most out of it. And I think by doing that, like you just will naturally start to accrue people that are following you because they actually want to know your opinion or they want to know what you're into, right? So
Yeah.
it's that's a good thing that I don't see a lot of people doing. They think, oh, why would I give a critique to someone's portfolio piece? It's like, well, it's just an opinion, right? Like, don't be an
Yeah.
asshole about it. Be like, oh, this sucks. Be like, oh, I really like this. I like to go for the turd sandwich approach, right? It's like things I like, things I don't like, and then cap it off with something that's like, oh, you can totally like. I also really like this about your work, and
Yeah.
that way it's like a win-win for them, especially for students, right? Like they're not left there with like, oh, this guy crushed me. It's like, no, this is cool. You could work on maybe you work on the lighting, work on the materials, and oh, I really liked how you added all the sci-fi cables all over the floor. That's really cool. And then
Yeah.
to them, they're like, oh, that's awesome. Like some good feedback, and it's just you just become a member of the community, right?
Yeah. I mean, definitely when you get to a point where people would view you as a pro, then you would maybe not be harsh about your feedback, be like, oh, dude, I mean, you totally missed the light in here. You really should have. But then, when people are pros, they can almost handle that feedback. People are people. Some people might or might not be able to handle it. But
Yeah,
when you're a
that's a
student,
big one.
yeah, because when you're a student and just starting, like if you're walking in here like, oh man, you're fucking lighting, it's terrible. What are you doing? Like they'll be like, oh fuck, and they'll just get up and move away because,
Yeah,
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 it just
exactly.
discourages them. Yeah.
And like I actually find like that's a big difference between a pro, like even like a junior and a senior artist, but especially like a student is a lot of times they'll get really like the person with not as much experience, they'll get really defensive or come up with excuses. Like I used to do this all the time, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's I didn't think of that, but technically it would be like this because of this. And
Yeah.
a lot of times like pros they're looking for that critique, right?
Yeah.
Or they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, cool, I didn't think of that. That's awesome. But like
Yeah.
a big sign of like a junior artist or a student is like they'll usually get defensive or be like, oh well, I just think it looks better like that, and they don't really have a justification of why.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's if you find yourself getting really defensive about your work, like maybe take a step back and be like, look at it from both angles. I mean it's cool to be like, no, actually I like it the way it is, but chances are if someone like in the industry is giving you feedback, it's at least consider their opinion, right? So
Oh no, definitely. I mean, I think this is where this was recently a point of contention for me on social media, but I even done a blog, but I retorted it eventually because people were just taking the wrong end of the stick. But what I was basically talking about in my blog was I've listened too much to too many people on like, you should do this, you should read this book, you should do this tutorial, and I've been know enough in my own head of, well, what works for me, because as people learn, there are various ways you can learn online tutorials, do videos, you can do books, you can speak to somebody, you can go to school for it, but you have to find what works for you, because I hate sitting down with books sometimes. I really can't focus as much, but I could watch a tutorial through a video for ages. But yeah, I was too many people. What is it the saying they say, too many chefs in the kitchen? So there was
yeah,
so many people saying you need to do this, you need to do it, and I'm always like, all right, and then I'd go learn this and go learn. And yeah, it was hard for me just to
yeah,
stand and say,
that's a big
yeah,
one,
yeah,
man. Like I
yeah,
would say that comes down to like developing just like self awareness, right? Like
yeah,
for me, like from the get, like I kind of knew that, oh, I don't want to go to college or university.
mm,
But for like I'm not saying that that's the best thing for everyone, right? Like so there's a lot of people that can use the structure or the I'm going to pay 10 grand, so I got to actually finish my portfolio to do it. So like it's you kind of got to look and sit down with yourself and be like, do I have the self discipline to build my portfolio alone in my
mm,
basement, or is school going to
yeah,
be something that's maybe something that'll give me some structure, and then having that incentive to finish it will be good for me. And it's
mm,
that's a big one. Is just develop that self awareness, because a lot of people like to say that like, oh, I'm just going to work on my portfolio, alone by myself in my parents' basement, but then they'd rather go play PlayStation. So,
oh god, yeah,
I mean, whereas like some structure could maybe get them through to the end, right? But I mean,
yeah.
that's a big one.
I think that's been my hardest hurdle, has been since I graduated and working on my portfolio, taking that time to get up in the morning and saying, right, I'm going to work on this or I'm going to do this. Yeah, the temptation to sit in Facebook or play a video game is way too high, for me to almost focus on minimal tasks. And I think it was easier when I was doing the speed sculpting, because, which I really want to go back to, and that was the point, is that the guy I'm working with just now, my mentor, is really awesome, and he's a really accomplished artist. But when I was doing the speed modeling, eventually he was saying, oh, okay, well, you've done enough of that. Now move on to something long term. But I just basically stopped doing the speed modeling, and I feel like doing something and publishing it every day was giving me motivation to also work on long term projects. So I really need to go back to learning those things and doing those things, I think, every day, because for me it was generating a structure where I would make something every day, and then it would also push me to work on other things. But without a task kind of set in my head or planned out on a bit of paper, yeah, it's hard for me, to get up every day and make something. Because I'm still, I mean, I had an interview not too long ago. I think I mentioned it to you at a games company, and yeah, basically the feedback was your stuff's good, but just you're not quite there. And still try to get up after that and make more stuff is difficult, man. It is
Oh
really
yeah,
hard.
for sure. And I mean, like that's a big one. Like kind of what you were just talking about, like having and doing something every day. As like I still struggle with that for sure. And like there's some
Yeah,
days where I totally do slack off, and I'm gonna sit down and play PlayStation, whatever. But
yeah,
the more you can like what you were doing with the daily things is it builds a really like positive momentum, right? So you have this feeling of accomplishment, and that just like exponentially increases the more you do it. So like
yeah.
there's a I don't know if everyone's seen his work. Beeple, he does like an
Oh my
awesome
god,
image every day, right? So I mean, like
Jesus.
for him to sit down, that's almost it becomes a habit, probably, right? He sits
Yeah,
down at his computer, and I would imagine, and would just start working. But like the second you stop, and then that momentum can start to reverse, right? Like so for me,
yeah,
when I was doing all those videos during the feudal challenge, doing all the
yeah,
Polygon Academy like tutorial videos, it
yeah,
became easier and easier to sit down and get in the groove of making videos and making tutorials. But then when the
yeah.
challenge finished, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a couple weeks break. And then I
Mhm.
didn't make another video for like, a month and a half or something like that. So
Yeah,
for me, I still got to sit down and kick my own ass and say, it's time to do another video, try and get into like a weekly or something like that. But the more you can build that positive momentum, and more importantly, the habit of just doing it. Like if you sit down at your computer at the same time every day after work, if say you're not in the industry and you're like, okay, I'm working at a restaurant and I'm going to go home and work on my portfolio. If you make sure that like the second you get home, like you kick off your shoes and you sit down at your computer instead of going and sitting on the couch and like, just
yeah,
chilling, and you
yeah,
build that habit of sitting at your computer in your brain, it's like, okay, it's time to work.
yeah.
And do that for a month and you're going to start getting a lot better results, I would find.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. There's a million actually people out there who are doing videos on motivation and doing these things and getting up in the morning and making these commitments to do things every day. And I think it is a thing where people want results too fast. And I remember back in the day when I was at university, I worked with a young guy actually who's went on to do amazing things now, but he even told about, I think somebody approached him in our final year and looked at his work ethic and was saying, oh my God, man, because he used to sit like, 10 o'clock at night in the university and do work. And that was the reason he got hired. But then, he was getting offers left, right, and center. But he was saying to guys when they were talking about his work ethic and into year 4, why he's so accomplished. And he was like, I started by doing maybe 30 minutes a day, but I'd done it every day. And then, I just bumped it up initially from 30 minutes to an hour, and then from an hour
Yeah,
to,
exactly. Like start small. Like
yeah,
don't like everyone always sets this goal of like I'm gonna get up at 5 a.m. I'm gonna do this, and it just becomes unattainable, right?
yeah,
Or unsustainable. It's like
yeah.
it's like kind of like a diet, right? Like you got to change your lifestyle. It's like I can't just have lemon water for the rest of my life. It's like you just actually have to change your lifestyle, right? So
Yeah.
for the patience thing is huge, man. Like everyone always kind of looks at my work or sends me messages being like, "Oh man, you're in the industry, blah blah blah." And what they don't realize is it took me like 6 years from the day I first opened 3D Studio Max to when I got my first industry job, right? So I always get emails and messages from like students that are maybe just starting their game design program and they're like a year and a half in. And they're like, oh, I want to get a job at a studio, but I just started doing 3D modeling. Like, I think I'm almost, I'll be there soon. And maybe they will if they're like going to do it every single day. Like, I think
Oh
someone
yeah.
could probably go to be, zero to hero and be industry ready in like a few years if they really buckled down.
Of course.
But like a lot of people don't even like to hear that. Like a few years, like, are you kidding me? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, it's the long game, right? And having a goal is really going to help you sit down and I want to work at this studio by X year. Like so someone might be like, I want to go work at Naughty Dog 5 years from now, or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And to some people, that's like 10 years, I'm out, like back on the
Yeah.
couch playing video games, right? So, I mean, you can cut that to micro goals. Like, I want to finish one environment every 2 months or something like that. So, and then
Yeah.
you structure your goals like that, right? So,
Yeah.
but the long term view is key because there's a lot of impatient students out there that are oh, I'm not in the industry. I just suck, and they start beating themselves up. They're like 2 years in, and
God, yeah.
they're like, I can't make a an awesome substance material like Daniel Tiger or whatever. Uh, and it's just you need that perspective of take a breath, like sit down and make like 10 environments, and then discard the first six that you made, and then
Yeah,
now you're going to start working on your professional portfolio, right? So it's
yeah. I
that's
mean,
one of the biggest pieces of advice I usually give students is once you finish school, like now the real grind begins. So like probably you're going to throw away your entire art school portfolio and start fresh
yeah,
with all the skills that you just learned, right?
yeah.
Because like
I mean,
who's going to show
yeah,
something that they just made with the first time that they learned a skill, right? It's like if I
yeah,
go to become a chef, I'm not going to show the first cake I bake. I'm going to bake a
yeah.
thousand cakes and then I'll consider myself ready, right? So
Yeah, I think it's definitely the way I think I would going to approach it now. And even with the daily stuff, even though I was posting things every day, I was even thinking of an alternative where I would do work for 7 days straight, or make things every day for 7 days, and then maybe pick the best two, and upload them.
yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, it's infectious as well, because I noticed that a couple of the guys that are regular on my Facebook, when I was posting every day. I remember one of the guys I knew from THU had posted something really awesome, and I was saying, that's really awesome, man, well done. And he was like, oh yeah, dude, it's because of your like daily posts. It's really inspired me to get out and working. And I'm like, it was the same when I done my Hearthstone challenge years ago, where I basically painted a Hearthstone card, like studied it every day for a month. So I ended up doing 30 illustrations, and people got super inspired, and I was getting featured in different blogs and stuff. And then like obviously like somebody from Blizzard even reached out to me, and I think the consistency of daily work really is something that needs to be instilled in a lot of students. I mean, even when I was doing my speed modeling and I was posting every day, I was getting emails from people. I mean, I got that job offer, that one I went and interviewed for. That was the reason I got it, because the guy had noticed I was posting every single day and I was making competent models. So he was like, "Oh yeah, dude, you'd probably be good for the job." But yeah, I think doing stuff maybe not daily but regularly is
yeah.
very key.
Consistency is the biggest thing, man. Like that way if like you said if you're posting every day or every few days, like if you look at the people with the like huge ArtStation followings, like say Raphael Lacoste, like look at, I mean, not only is he like an amazing artist, but like look at his gallery and it's like full to the brim. Like he's posting every couple days, right? And
Yeah,
you can always audit your portfolio too, right? Like for me, there's a couple like of my old work I should probably go and just remove or delete, but like
yeah,
I'm employed. I'm not looking for a job or anything like that. So
yeah,
for me, it's cool. Just leave it there. But like if I was to say suddenly be unemployed and be like really frantically looking for work, I would go and do a harsh audit on my portfolio. And
yeah,
just because there's something in your gallery doesn't mean it has to stay there forever, right? Like people get so
yeah,
romantic and attached to it. Like
yeah,
the out of the 30 things that you made, yeah, like you said, even if there's two, that's great. And not only that, but like
mm,
just the amount of skills and speed you would develop doing those 30 things, that's like
yeah,
where the real value is, right? Like it's putting your output on steroids, and it's just like 30 at bats instead of just sitting there on swinging twice in a year, right? Like you're smashing like new pieces
yeah.
of work out over and over and over and over, and eventually you're gonna strike gold with a couple of them, right? So
Yeah, I think even the fact that with ArtStation as well, within it you can set, well, what they call tabs, so you can have your project split into different tabs, so that like my main one, or my one called main, is the front thing you see as soon as you click on my profile. But then I've also got one for speed modeling, one for publication interviews, and one for studies. So as long as main's the first thing that comes up and people see that, that's fine. But you can also have things that are dedicated to, like my speed modeling one is just full of every model I made over the 30 days. But it's not the first thing you see, so it's fine as long as it's hidden away. But if the main thing people see is the main thing, then yeah, you can fill it as I think, as long as you're what's the word, organizing it in a way that people can see the good stuff first, then yeah, sure, fill your boots with stuff every day. But I think sometimes it can get a bit dangerous if you're just posting a million things, and then as soon as you click on someone's profile, it's like, well, where is the latest stuff? What's the best he's got? If it's just reams and reams of
yeah, yeah,
artwork.
for sure. Like that's where like auditing the port. Like if you're actively looking for work, for sure, audit your portfolio, and hide some of the stuff or delete some of the stuff you
Yeah,
don't want. But I mean, doing those like big content blasts like that, that's also like a perfect opportunity to be posting daily on, like, say if you have an Instagram too, right? Like it's just
yeah,
the same content distributed across all these different networks.
yeah,
Same thing, put it on LinkedIn. There's probably going to be a bunch of people that are inspired by seeing your consistency, and that's where a lot of producers and HR like to hang out too, right? So there's
yeah,
if they're seeing someone's being super consistent, That's a big win for anyone that's kind of trying to, what's this person all about? Oh, they're doing art every day. They must be passionate. Like, let's take a deeper look. And for
Yeah,
me, that's the thing, is like, I just want those like little, come across little things where I'm like, that's interesting. Let's take a deeper look. Like
yeah,
if some
definitely.
student was like saying, oh, I'm going to make a vlog every week on for my journey from art student to my dream job at Blizzard or Naughty Dog,
Yeah,
like I would watch that. Like that would be something, as even though I'm, supposedly an industry pro, supposedly
yeah,
as
yeah,
in air quotes here, an industry professional. Like to me, that would be just an interesting piece of content that I would consider like probably watching if it was good, right? And then
yeah,
you never know. You watch that person develop for a year, and then you become a fan of them, and you're like, you got a little like fanboy crush on them too, and you're like, oh, cool. Oh, this person's like, moving to Montreal. Hey, maybe we should give them an interview.
yeah,
It's just like
definitely.
people's awareness of your online presence is super critical. Like that's how it works in 2019, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's the way that's happened as well with like there's a guy, I don't know if you know him, but he does a channel called, I think it's No Clip, where it's basically Danny Dwyer, where
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's done the documentary. I think the first one he done was on Ed Studios on the re-release of Doom, and then he done one on Fallout, and those kind of things, like I think, are just instrumental in people's interest in the industry, because it's fine seeing tutorials and whatever, but there's never really as much bio or an autopsy of what it takes and from day to day. And oh, this week, I done this tutorial and I finished this piece of work, and I think that was something I was wanting to do with Digital Artcast on the side, was make a small, almost documentary of me trying to get in the industry. But in essence, it was harder because I think then taking time away to post stuff on YouTube takes away time from working on stuff on your portfolio, and
Oh
it's
man,
a hard,
that was me on
yeah,
that ArtStation challenge. So it was like, so for some backstory of that challenge,
yeah,
basically I was on sabbatical, so I decided, I saw the challenge posted, I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'm going to use that as like a launching pad for Polygon Academy. I ordered a camera. And then, literally 30 minutes after I ordered that camera, this is how life likes to mess with you. My buddy Lincoln called me up and was like, "Oh, hey, but by the way, Took, we're looking for someone to come and work for us.
oh god,
Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Oh man, there's my, I was like, this challenge is gonna be so easy. I'm just gonna work 8 hours a day on it." And then I was like, "Oh well, I guess I'll take the job at Took."
yeah,
But by also documenting, like, that took a whole extra night per week, right? So
yeah,
it's like I would technically be working 4 or 5 days on the challenge, making the art, but then I would have to dedicate a whole day to shooting and editing a video, which was actually
yeah,
really cool because I learned a whole bunch of new skill set there, right? Like editing,
yep,
and it's only benefited me in multiple ways. But yeah, it definitely is a huge time investment to do that. Like, shoot a video and then edit it for like 4 to 6 hours is
yeah,
kind of crazy. But I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it. But it's the payoff, right? Like I have had people hit me up that wouldn't have, because they've seen those videos.
yeah,
So is that 4 hours invested, worth it? Probably.
yeah. I mean, it's difficult as well because, yeah, you think about the exposure you'll get for that as well, but then it is one of the things where you think, oh well, will it take away from my time? But then I'm lucky just now where I am because, yeah, like I haven't got much going on, so yeah, I have more free time. But then I'm going to be moving soon, so yeah, it's going to be not even just moving, like moving country. So I'm thinking about how my setup's going to be affected whilst that happens, and if I'm going to have time. But yeah, because we even thought the place we were moving to would be quite picturesque as well, so we could do vlogs about that. But again, it's just something I feel like, this has been my entire struggle for the last 5 years because I used to be very active in different things, probably because I had a full time job as an engineer. But outside of that, I played music in bands, I played different instruments. I had like a YouTube channel that was for gaming, and I used to do more or less weekly uploads on that. And I managed to balance it all, but I've always felt like, like, oh, what's the point of picking up the guitar or drums again? Because that's not going to contribute towards my art career. But then I think it's also a thing where people have talked about, well, having hobbies outside the art is something that also will inspire your art because, yeah, you have to take a break away from that stuff as well
Yeah,
as sit and do it.
absolutely,
So
man. Like for me, I love traveling, going like strapping on the backpack and go backpacking for a month or whatever. Like
yeah,
what I rode a motorcycle all the way across Vietnam, and that only
funny.
it like set to inspire me, right? Like I while doing that, I was thinking, how is this gonna? Oh, I want to make a cool rice paddy scene or something like that. Like
Yeah,
some old like Ho Chi Minh Highway scene that would be dope. I'll snap all these pictures. now I know what the back alleys of Bangkok smells like. So, but if I ever go and create like a really cool back alley scene like that, I know what the heat and the humidity and like just the smell and the feeling of it. So
Yeah,
that always gets me super inspired. Usually during those trips, by the end of the trip, I'm like, okay, cool, it's time to go back home and get to work on something creative. So I mean,
yeah,
yeah, sometimes either taking a bit of a break is great for avoiding burnout, or just
yeah,
balancing your life, right? Like I don't I as much as I like to say, yeah, get good really fast and like focus and do art all the time, there is that
yeah,
balance. Because like if you burn yourself out a year into your studies or your career,
yeah,
it's only going to hurt you in the long term, right? So it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
about that balance, man.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of pros I have spoken to have said that one of the things they regretted sometimes straight off was the burnout factor, was pushing themselves too hard initially, and then when they got in the industry, because they didn't take a break, because you push yourself so much, then as soon as you get a job, you're back into the push because you're working again. So you're almost in double burnout, and then it makes it hard because you think you're in an industry, you're trying to keep your job, but at the same time, not like die. So it is a hard balance, and I feel like that's a thing people still talk about, to this day, and it's still a conversation of, especially now with the layoffs. It's like, how much should you sacrifice for a company? How hard should you push yourself? How much free overtime should you work?
Yeah,
Is it something you should invest in, or should you look after yourself? And I think it's difficult. I mean, now in the UK especially, they've just formed a games union. So if you sign up to that, they can obviously provide legal representation and things if you're laid off or you get dismissed, unjustly. But then if you're one of those guys who's like, clocking out at 5:30 and going home, I would feel that, people will be watching me leave and be like, oh, 5:30, he's away home, and it's a difficult
yeah,
balance, right? You
that's
want
a
to be there
balancing act
working, but
too, right? Because
yeah,
like I mean, there's both sides of that coin, right? The people sitting there like, oh, this guy is going home to this guy going home to his wife and kids or his family, or going to enjoy
bad,
his
yeah,
life. It's like you
disgraceful.
know what is it? It's like live to work, or work to live, not live to work, or something like
Yeah,
that. So I mean,
yeah, yeah,
if it's some, I mean, there's people that are super passionate about making games and want to be there 12 hours a day. Like if
yeah,
no one's chaining them to their desk, right? They want to enjoy and do that.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
It's yeah, self awareness, and also choosing the company that you want to work for, right? Like that was one really awesome thing about Ubisoft is their work life balance is super great.
right,
Like they don't never really like chain you to your desk or force you to work overtime, and there's always lots of like outside of work activities going on and stuff like that. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's like something that same thing, self awareness. What do you want to get out of it?
yeah,
And just figuring out that balance for yourself is something. But yeah, like for me, when I first got into the industry, I kind of stopped making personal projects for almost a few years, just because like
yeah,
I was getting enough creative satisfaction, at work, working 8 hours a day, doing like environments and stuff like that. And there was part of me like back in my more junior days where I would feel kind of guilty. I'd be like, oh, I should be doing art. And it is good to keep yourself like relevant and learn new programs and stuff like that, which you'll probably have to do on your own time. But to like
yeah,
have this idea of like if I'm not working 8 hours a day at work and then coming home and working 4 to 5 hours every night on
yeah,
my own art, that can become like insanity, I find, and you're just gonna same thing, burn yourself out. And so for me nowadays, like I've kind of removed that guilt factor of like, oh, I need to be making art. I'm like, you know what, today I don't feel like it. That's cool. I've gotten to a point in my career where I don't have to like super sweat it out and
yeah,
like that. But it's just balance, man.
yeah. I think just find it harder maybe because I'm entering the industry at an age where most people are at your stage, and they've worked enough that they can take a more like relaxed approach, and they've not got to kill it as much. But well, when I left my job, I was 27, 28. And now I'm 33, so because I went through, like a 4-year degree program and done networking, but yeah, it's like I'm almost, well, no, almost, but I mean, in August I'll be hitting 34, and I feel like I'm trying to catch up with people who are a lot younger and quicker than me, and have got their kind of shit together. But I mean, somebody always told me that age is irrelevant in this industry because you're gonna have to work till you're 70, 80 anyway, so you've got 30 plus years of work ahead of
Yeah,
you. But
exactly.
yeah,
For me, it's like I'll see like people that are in their early 20s that are just like badass artists, like way better than me, and I'll just be like, oh man, like if I sat there and dwelled on that, like
yeah,
I've wasted 10 years in my life and I'm not that good. Or it's like looking at someone who's like a millionaire in their 20s, like they built their own business or something, right? And being like,
yeah,
fuck, I'm not a millionaire at 20. Like
yeah,
it's man, comparison is like the root of unhappiness in a lot of those cases. It's so just to be like kind of focus on what you're doing and don't worry about anyone else. I mean, it's good to
Yeah,
compare your work to like people that are better than you in a constructive way to be like, oh, what can I learn? What's the missing in the gap of the work, but not to
yeah,
let that reflect on you as a person, right? It's like they're not a better person than you. You're not a better person than them. It's
yeah,
just like it is what it is, and you
yeah.
take what you can from it and just leave the rest and don't let it get you down, man.
Yeah, I mean there was definitely a post I put on Facebook this morning, and it was probably the most attraction I had ever get to a post I'd ever put on my Facebook, and it was somebody just saying, "Oh, let's check another artist page," and then it was like artists that I think are better than me, and then like the blast from the computer just increases as it's like same age or younger, and then it's like just started a year ago. It's like oh Jesus,
Yeah.
because like it is a daily struggle. I think everybody who opens ArtStation in the morning, they're like, oh fuck me, man! Like, there's so much stuff,
Oh, it's
just
constant, and I mean,
yeah,
like, it's the same thing as Instagram, man. Like, you're only seeing a part of the picture, right? Like, someone
yeah,
could post up a dope image and be like, "Yeah, took me 2 hours." Did it really? Who knows, right? Like, there's the whole
yeah,
humble brag thing. Like, that's why I take it with a grain of salt, and I'm like, yeah, it's a
yeah,
dope image, and what can I learn from it? Then maybe save it to my collections, as
yeah,
inspiration later on. But to sit there and to oh man, this person's better than me. How am I gonna
yeah,
ruin my own day by just dwelling on that? Like, it's a
yeah.
bad habit to fall into.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people have kind of posted stuff about it recently, saying that you need to use that stuff really just to fuel you and make you inspired about your next project, and pull things apart. If you see something that is a lot more awesome than your work, then think, well, why is it more awesome? What is it that's separating it from your work at the moment? And then try and integrate those tools into your own stuff. So,
Yeah, do like
um,
a quick like
yeah,
80/20 analysis on it. Like, what's the 20% of their art that is giving them the 80% of the bang for the buck, so that I can learn.
yeah,
Maybe their lighting's just better. So if I improved my lighting, there you go. There's a huge
yeah,
gain. Or, maybe their materials are slightly more interesting. There's a huge
yeah,
gain to be learned right there, right? A
yeah,
lot of people just like look at it as a whole and be like, "Oh my god, I'll never get there." But if you start breaking it down, like, what's the difference? Okay,
yeah,
their textures are a little bit better. Their lighting's a bit better. It's, their design sense is vastly improved from years of experience. Like, I look at
yeah,
the guys works at Gorilla, like all of their designs or their mechanical design is phenomenal. And
yeah,
that's one of the things I struggle with, right? Like sci-fi and mechanical design. So for me to sit
yeah.
there and be like, "Oh my god, it's so complicated. I'll never get there."
Mhm.
It's like, man, just start studying mechanical design.
Yeah, I think that's because for many years they had Mike Hill employed as well as Jort van Welbergen, who like are two guys who just kill that kind of stuff
Yeah,
like
they
on
like
the daily.
they actually employ like industrial engineers, like
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that are
pretty
that
much
are
just people who
basically
are like that.
designing
Yeah,
things. So it's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, like just to kind of wrap up at the end, I mean, you talked about like your Feudal Japan challenge because that was what I noticed or had the biggest impact from the stuff you were posting. With that whole environment and congrats on the second place by the
Oh,
way, that
thanks,
was really
man.
awesome. Yeah. So where was your original inspiration from? Where I mean, I know you talked about in your videos basically, you were building mood boards, you were setting the scene, you were trying to work out with blockouts where you wanted stuff. I mean, I suppose a synopsis to the whole 10 minutes. What is your approach to building environments, or what have you learned from that process that you think would be instrumental in teaching people how to work within real time and environments?
Yeah, I would say like for environment stuff, for me, like it really helped having a concept to work from. So like if I
Yeah,
try and sit there and imagine everything myself or try and come up with something, like I'm not that's not my strong suit. And so like having just going and like browsing concept art on ArtStation for me, like
yeah,
a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know if I should recreate this artist's 2D concept. I'm like, if it's on ArtStation, it's pretty much fair game. Like, yeah,
yeah,
give them, send them a message, be like, hey, I'm going to tackle this concept, but like
mhm,
that's the way it is, like, these days, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
people blast out artwork, just you work from an established concept. Don't try and like start from square one, right? So uh and yeah, use references. That's like a big point that I made. And
yeah,
then just play to your strong suits. So if
yeah,
you're really good at sci-fi, then just go all in on that and just be a badass sci-fi artist, and then you'll probably get really good at that and get a job really quickly like that.
yeah,
um but yeah, man, just work from. Don't try and come up with things yourself if you're not good at it. And I mean, like a lot of people these days, they're afraid to kit bash or say maybe like use mega scans in their portfolio. Or if you're a lighting artist, use all of those freely released scenes and create a dope portfolio like that. Like there's so much free
Yeah.
content. It's not cheating. It's not stealing. It's like
Mm.
you're a
Yeah.
lighting artist, so just focus on the lighting. And
Yeah.
that would be something like a student could focus on too. Is like if they're in a class,
Hmm.
they could collab with other artists in their class. If they're maybe they want to work with a level designer or a to do the layout or a texture artist to do all their textures. As long as you kind
Yeah.
of like clearly say what you're doing on that project,
Yeah.
it's man trying to do everything yourself is quickly becoming impossible. But just because the process of making game art is getting so much more complicated, so you either have to really reduce your scope, and that's a big tip I would give to like any student is re- reduce your scope as much as possible, because I see like students like I'm going to create an entire city and it's not going to look good. Like, that's like the biggest red
Yeah.
flag for me. It's like just do the corner of a building, like the corner of a street, like something like that,
Yeah.
and reduce your scope and just make it something that's manageable, right? So and
Yeah.
that way you can focus on okay, I'm going to make 3 textures. I don't have to make 20 and get overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
balance your workload.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, like when
really
I first
important.
started out, I think the first thing I ever tackled is something everybody tackles, which is the sci-fi corridor, like one corridor
Everybody does it.
with a door. Yeah, like so. But then I feel like with your project, even the small yard that you made up, like what stood up to me in that whole project was one, the materials, and two, the lighting. I felt like they were the things that were like the standout parts for me anyway. Just the overall atmosphere, I think, was what really caught me. Just the
Yeah,
whole mood
for
of
me, like lighting and mood are probably like my biggest strong suit.
yeah,
To be honest, I actually don't even enjoy modeling that much.
right.
It's just part of the process. So I try and I always say try and enjoy the process as much as you can. So I kind of try and get
Right.
into it. I like sculpting
Hmm.
and stuff like that, but like I focus my time doing the things that I enjoy doing. And I knew in the back end, I'm like, okay, I'll be able to use my lighting and like, my ability with composition and stuff like that to make this look good. So I'm not going to get too lost in the weeds of like, is my mesh super clean or amazing? Like I'm not, no one's going to
Yeah.
see the wireframe. And I just played to my strong suits. So that would be a
Yeah.
big thing is like find something you're good at and that you enjoy and
Mhm.
just go all in that. Cause I see a lot of students be like, oh, should I be a character artist? Should I be an environment artist? There's more environment artist jobs. But the thing is, if you really are passionate about doing characters, yeah, it might take you like an extra year to get into the industry or to get good at because there's the job balance is usually there's like say 4 or 5 character artists and then there's like 10 environment artists on a team, right? So it might take
Yeah.
you longer to get in, but once you get in, you're not going to get burnt out because you're actually going to enjoy what you're doing on a daily basis. So
100%. Yeah.
yeah, having that scarcity mentality of like I'm going to go for what's readily available, even though I don't really enjoy it because I'm just going to try and get the money to do it. Like it's a
Yeah.
big mistake. So yeah, play
Yeah.
play to your strengths and what you're passionate about. Like if you want to be a texture artist, make textures all day. Like don't
Yeah.
don't feel you have to do everything. If you're in school, like school is a good opportunity to taste everything. Like
Yeah.
make a character, make a environment, and like yeah, it's not all going to look amazing, but it gives you the ability to sample what you enjoy doing, and that's probably the
Yeah.
biggest win of school, I would say.
I think also with that as well is a good point that I think was made to me a while back was that once you're in the industry and once you've got that first initial foot in the door, you don't have to do the job you were initially hired for like the rest of your life. Like you can, if you're dedicated enough, after your job and you want to learn another skill set, you can switch roles,
Oh yeah,
you know, throughout the time you're an artist because you're alive for like however many years. So like it's not impossible. I mean, one of the Flip Normal podcasts I listened to recently, it was a guy who basically worked on environments for I think a solid 5 years, and then at night he was doing character stuff, and then eventually got a shot at being a character artist, and
yeah, I
that's
mean,
what he
like
does now.
I know people that have been like, say, an environment artist, then a lighting artist, then moved on to be an art director. Then they're like, I actually don't enjoy that much. I'm going to go back to being a lighting artist, or like they
Yeah,
go and they switch around, and there's nothing set in stone, right? Like if suddenly I wanted to become a texture artist, I could buckle down and become a texture artist by
yeah,
focusing on doing that. So I mean, it's just do what you enjoy. That's the biggest thing. Is don't
yeah.
get locked into something you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah, because you got to be doing it for 40 hours a week, so you want to make sure that
Yeah.
you have some enjoyment in it, or it's really going to be hard. Because yeah, you have to be in there Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Then yeah, sure, you need to be making sure you have some fun in what you do.
Yeah,
So
exactly. There's a lot of students that are like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a job as a game tester, and then that'll be my foot in the door." But then they're gonna be miserable because they have to work, extra overtime, and they don't have time to
yeah,
work on their art, right? So I mean, it
yeah,
can be a way into the industry, but are you gonna be happy doing it? Who knows, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I even know people who are environment artists, but then even environment artists can split off into like, like they do more technical art, so they build like tool sets or tools or research for the next project, or some guys actually get heavy into concept and then become like almost like 3D environmentists who can also do really awesome 2D concept stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so there's even different avenues within that, that you can branch out to. So yeah, you're never really tied down to one job.
Yeah, I would say
So
focus on getting really good at one skill set until you get your first
yeah,
job. Like
yeah,
instead of trying to be a generalist, like either become like an environment artist, an asset artist, character artist. Like just hammer on that until you're basically when you get your first job and you're being paid professionally to do it. That's the quickest way to do it is just focus on one core skill set. But then who's to say like after you're in the industry or whatever and you want to branch out, like you said, just start doing other things. But like I think
yeah,
the people that kind of gets in that I'm going to try and do everything when they're first starting. It really
yeah,
slows them down, right? And they're like, why can't I get a job? It's because your portfolio is full of like a half-assed, well, not half-assed, but like half good concept, a random character, like a rock sculpt, and like a
yeah.
gun model, and it's like you're not showing that you're excellent at one thing.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, I've done that for so many years. I've done that. Like, I basically was like, oh, I'd love to do some content. I'd love to do this, that, and the other. And that's probably what I think has been my biggest mistake the last couple of years. And it was mostly because I just didn't know enough about the industry. But then I see the same mistakes. Like even last year at THU, a student was showing me his portfolio, and I was saying to him, I said, "Oh no, this a lot of these pieces are really good, but what is it you actually want to do? Because you had like a character, you had an environment, you had a weapon, and I was like, do you want to be a
yeah,
generalist or do you want to do something specific? Oh, I want to do characters. I was like, well, you need to fill your ArtStation with characters. Like that's what you
yeah.
need to have
I
here.
mean, I mean, a lot of that
So,
stuff, it's good. Like I said, figuring out what you enjoy doing. Like you almost have to
mhm,
go through that phase. Like I definitely did when I was way back in like high school. I would make characters, environments,
mhm,
everything. But like once you kind
yeah,
of this is what's for me. Like once I
yeah,
decided environment art, I really like architecture. I just went
yeah,
all in on it, and that's
yeah,
what helped me get a job by the time I was 20. Right? It's like I just started making environments. And as soon as I made that switch, that my skill set in environment art got me to like industry ready probably in like a fraction of the time of that
yeah.
6 years where I was practicing. It probably took me like 2 years to get good instead of
Oh
the
yeah.
other four dabbling around. So
Because if an outsource manager or an art director looks at your portfolio and is like, this guy's pumping out environments like every month, oh
yeah,
well, we can hire him then.
yeah,
So I mean,
they're
yeah,
they're looking to hire for a specific role. So that
yeah,
if they open your portfolio and it bashes them over the head with environment artists, and they literally have a job opening that says we're looking for 3 environment artists, like it's
yeah,
a no brainer, right? And if they have to,
yeah,
basically, you want your portfolio to answer as many questions as possible. Like they
yeah,
shouldn't look at your portfolio and be like, what does this person do
yeah.
exactly?
Is he doing weapons? Is he doing characters? I'm not too
Yeah,
sure. Oh,
is
he's
he
got
a
one
texture
weapon
artist?
and
Is he
yeah,
I mean, it's the
yeah,
the more questions you can remove, the better your chances of just scoring an interview and
yeah.
getting a job. So
Definitely, yeah. Visibility, I think, is one thing that is hard enough, and I know people overcoming that with just making custom thumbnails for their ArtStation PCs and including stuff like Marmoset viewers and stuff, because then that
oh yeah,
stands them out from everybody else.
yeah,
So,
like don't underestimate your thumbnail for sure.
oh
That's
god,
that's a
yeah,
big one.
yeah,
It's like same for YouTube videos, everything. Like that's what I'm experimenting with right now. It's like making thumbnails that make people actually click and watch your YouTube video. It's the exact same for ArtStation, right? Like
yeah,
it's just getting that attention. That's all it is.
yeah.
Getting attention to your work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the clickbait stuff seems like a bit of a scam at the time, but sometimes it is the only way you can stand out. It's like a pink shirt and a sea of white sweaters. Like, I mean, it's
Exactly.
the only way you're gonna really stand out is to be different. So,
You need
yeah,
the
definitely.
quality to be there after they click, but you need to get them to actually click to look at your stuff first.
Initially,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we've been a podcast now for 2.5 years, and I'm only at maybe 1,500 subscribers, but it's mostly just because I've not really built visibility. The podcast was there as a side project, and but then if you are looking to build the audience, then sure you need to be throwing out something that people want to click on daily. And I think it's just harder as well because the industry is so small. The people who want to listen to my podcast are only going to be people who are students or industry professionals. So you're never going to get like the views like PewDiePie gets and stuff because I'm not sitting playing games or anything. So
yeah, for sure. But I
yeah,
mean, like you should never underestimate the power of a niche audience too, right? Like I know plenty of people with like say like a 10,000 subscribers on their YouTube that are making like a crazy amount of money. So
yeah.
it's not just oh I need if it's not going to be 1 million subscribers, there's no point. So It's
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's even one of the guys I interviewed a while back, Modern Day James. I don't know if you've heard of that guy, but James Murphy. He's basically a guy who was like a musician in a band called Painted in Exile, and he left basically to pursue a career in art, and he just locked himself in his mum's basement for a year and learned illustration and all aspects of it, and now he's working at Brainstorm in LA with a couple of the guys up there, James Pack and that, and then he now is running his own YouTube channel. He does kind of daily or every other day streams. He does online, tutorials and teaches people now for Brainstorm. But yeah, he's been one of the greatest examples, I would say, of people who want to make art their brand. Like, he's just been making some crazy waves in YouTube and Gumroad and other things, and it kind of shows that you can have a lot of good visibility as an artist as well as posting up videos. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, like if say you do get laid off and you have this big track record of putting out all this extra content that shows you're really passionate about what you do, I mean, that's just going to give you a leg up, like over someone that's like, oh, here's my basic 3-image ArtStation portfolio. You know what I mean? Like that they probably they maybe didn't update because they were, comfortable in the industry or something like that. And then all of a sudden the shit hits the fan and it's like, time to update ArtStation with,
no,
all this
definitely,
old
yeah.
game
I
artwork.
mean,
So
yeah, because I'm saying like, oh no, there's a niche and there's maybe not now. I mean, James has like 150,000 subscribers, so I mean, there's definitely people out there who will want to learn stuff like that. So yeah, okay, cool. So I mean, I've kept Tim for long enough, so we'll probably wrap it up there. But if you guys haven't noticed already, I'm going to leave some links in the description. Tim has just put out some, I think it's lighting packs for Unreal, some stuff
like
on
some
Gumroad.
presets for Gumroad.
Yeah. And then his Gumroad is full of other stuff as well, tutorials, and then I'll leave some links for Polygon as well in the Academy. And then yeah, they just can check out his stuff, his ArtStation as well, see some of his awesome stuff, and leave some love.
Cool.
Just to thank Tim for coming on again and giving up his time. It was really nice of him. Thank you very much, man, for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really awesome. Yeah, definitely. And again, guys, just keep an eye on the podcast. We'll have more episodes coming out. I'm going to make sure these are going to be quite regular on the lead up to me, posting more stuff. So just keep an eye on Facebook and other social media places, and we'll see you again. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you later.